Alright, so what is up guys, it's Zero here, and today I have for you my Dauntless DOTE deck profile. So, this was the other Kagero deck to come out of set 11, the other one being Steel Dragons. And this was the one that everyone was anticipating. But unfortunately, in my opinion, this deck has definitely underperformed and is definitely the weaker of the two decks. But a large portion of that is because of Kagero's as a clan's fault and not really the deck's fault. I'll get that a little later, but without further ado, here is the deck list. So I'd say this is relatively standard, nothing too special. I guess I'll start from the starter. So our starter choice is Conroe. Not too much of a surprise, I'd say. Conroe is arguably the best starter in the game, and so if you have the option to play him, you probably will play him. So yeah, that's why we chose Conroe. Although I will say that Red Pulse Draco Kid, the GOAT clone, the dig top 5 for a grade 3, I'd say that is worth considering if you really want to see the Dauntless First Ride, or if you really want to see or you want a way to try to dig for a Persona Blast. I will say the Red Pulse is a choice that you can choose to play, but I think the Kagero, the stability from the extra PG is a little bit better. Yeah, that's a Conroe. We play the new PGs. I just opt to play the full playset of the new ones because I'm not the biggest fan of randomly drawing. Like, if you play splits, I'm not the biggest fan of drawing the Bari when you're about to get crit and you needed the break ride that turn. Just stuff like that. I'd rather just not leave it down to random RNG of me drawing the wrong PG at the wrong time. So yeah. Play a new PG. You are a break ride reliant deck if you go into Dauntless, so you don't want to get damage denied. So yeah, this is why I play the 4 the new PG. Next we have 4 Gojos. He's been here since that one, but if you don't know what he does right now, his skill is Vanguard rear. You can rest him to filter. Pretty solid. Important thing is a 7k booster, so that if you don't filter, then he makes 16k lanes with your 9k grade intercepts. But yeah, he's just a 7k booster that has occasional upside. That's why I choose to play the Gojo. Same thing with the Kersey. He doesn't check for anything Steel Dragon related. He's just off play point grade 2 to filter. Yes, it's basically the same reason as Gojo. He's a 7k with an upside. I'm not too high on filter to begin with, but I think that these two just being 7Ks that can do something occasionally is nicer than having like 4 bars or other 7Ks in Kagero that straight up will do anything. Yeah, this is why I chose to run for the 8 filter lineup, because there are 7Ks that do stuff. Next, it's the 1 bar. This 1-off can honestly be anything. You can play Pretzel Preference. I chose the bar just because it's an 8K that if you happen to draw it, you can ride it and it deters aggro. It scales well with everything. It's just a solid 1-off. There's not really much else you can play. I have some tech choices off to the side, but from testing, they just never come up, so I just prefer the 1 bar. Alright, onwards to grade 2, we have the Striken. No, he has Restraint on Vanguard, so he just can't attack if you ride him, and then his skills, when he's rode upon, you give the card that rode it 5k and 1 crit. So it lets you do. This card is what I like to call it a tempo card, where he pushes the tempo towards your favor. Like, the extra damage is nice, but if you just choose not to hit them on that turn where you ride the Striken, the damage is even because you didn't do a damage on that turn, but you do an extra damage on your next turn. Because there are definitely times you actually want to damage deny, like a Conroe, so you can Berserk it the next turn, deny an Eric playing his Aqua Force, so they might not have a main ride. Stuff like that to keep in mind. So yeah, Striken lets you do cool stuff like that. And Striken also allows you to do the strike it into DOTE play, where if you just have two DOTEs in hand, you can basically just push them to 5 on that turn, because most decks are playing the new PGs now. So if you ride Striken, you DOTE, you hit them. Just say they're at 1 damage. You hit them to 3. And then you hit them to 5. That's a pretty strong play. Yeah, that's why we play 4 of it. At worst on the rear, it's a 10k vanilla, so you can just treat it as a vanilla with upside. That's why we play 4 of it. Pretty solid card. Next, the other 4 of is the Bellicosity. He's just on hit counter charge. You're playing a bunch of stuff that needs counter block in this deck, so Belly is pretty important. I'd say you have to play at least 3 of them. I personally myself was playing 3 before, but I personally didn't find the need for the 4th Berserk, so I just swapped the patience between the Berserk and the Belly, where I went with the 4 Belly, 3 Berserks instead of the other way around. But yeah, So good card, counter, lets you counter charge. Next, we have the 3 Berserk Dragons. So his skill is on play, counterblast 2, pop a grade 2 or lower rear guard. So he's good just because in games where you ride the Dauntless, this lets you push for damage early for like a reasonable amount of counterblast. Because 2 is not that expensive, especially if you can refund one of the velocity. Lets you do that, lets you slow the game down by popping boosters. And on games where you ride DOTE but don't see the Persona Blast, it lets you do something outside of Persona Blast. So I do think you should play at least 3 Berserk Dragons in the deck. Yeah, so I would say you need at least 3 Berserks, at least 3 Velocities, and at least 3 Strikers. So I'd say the ratio between these are like play aroundable with. And finally, my tech of choice is the 2 Burning Horns. So he is a 12k attacker on your turn if you have an Overlord Vanguard. I'll address the problem now. With this card, he is a 9k vanilla if you are on Dauntless. But, in my opinion, having a card that can hit the Vanguard solo, or just ram into any intercept by itself solo, is super important for your Break Ride Dauntless DOTE turns. Because the thing with Dauntless DOTE is that Kagero has no draw power in the deck aside from your draw triggers and DOTE itself. So you want to on that Dauntless DOTE turn, you want to commit as little cards from your hand as possible, and this card lets you do that. Because this card by itself just takes out an intercept or can hit into Vanguard unboosted, which is really good. Yeah, that's why I would play 2 of it. I honestly would play more if Dauntless was a Overlord, but he isn't, so you have to work with what you have. This card is solid enough. I wouldn't play it more than 2 of though. You can definitely opt to cut this for like the 4th Berserk or like more 10k vanillas. I'd say this card isn't necessary, but it's nice to have. Alright, next off we have the grade 3s, so I'd say 12 slots are pretty standards. We'll just go over them one by one now. First off, we have the Dauntless, the newest inclusion of the deck. I think he's aside from the Courtesy and the PG, he's the only new inclusion to the deck. So yeah, the deck didn't really change from before, but that's besides the point. Dauntless is a break ride, so the skill is Limit Break 4. When something rides on him, you have 4 damage, plus 10k, and you give your Vanguard the skill. At the end of the battle that it attacked, once per turn, Counterblast 1, discard 3, restand, draw 2. So he lets your Vanguard restand again for a cheap Counterblast cost, super expensive hand cost. Yeah, this is the reason why I think this deck is a little bit underwhelming, because if you just don't see enough draw triggers, sometimes you just don't have the hand to pay for all of this and hold your PGs in hand. Yeah, I think there are definitely problems with the deck, but Dauntless definitely raises the ceiling of DOTE, so this card is definitely needed for the deck. And then he also has the skill where it's on Vanguard and you have more rears than your opponent during your turn, you get plus 3k. Lets you scale well with any booster, because 14 plus 7k booster is a 21 lane, so with bar it's 22. So you hit 11k bases over a trigger, which is really nice. So the skill is super good for what it is. It seems like it isn't much, but it's actually really good. It lets you guarantee an extra damage in. Yeah. Obviously, you play him for the reset, not for the scaling ability, but this raises the ceiling of the deck where this card, if you have this, and you either DOTE and you have a Persona Blast, you basically become like, you can do really strong turns, similar to, I'd say, Ethics Blau, where you can just kind of steamroll them from 3 if they don't have any intercept, stuff like that. Obviously, the ceiling isn't as high, but the difference, in my opinion, between the 2 decks is that your floor is a lot higher, because the rest of your deck can actually do it. Unlike Ethics Blau, where if they brick, they just kind of fall flat on their face. With this deck, even if you brick and you have to ride like Dauntless first, or not Dauntless, sorry, you ride DOTE first, or you ride base Overlord first, your deck can still do things outside of just that one super explosive turn. So yeah, you play it because they raise the ceiling of the deck, but the card itself is still, I'd say, solid enough. Next, we have the DOTE. So cross ride to base Overlord. It doesn't come up near. You don't really go for it much anymore, because with this list you play base Overlord and heal, so you don't really hold him the whole thing again. If you happen to see him, even if you happen to see him after that, I still usually opt to not ride it, because I'd rather have the extra Overlord as a rear later. But occasionally it comes up and occasionally can win you games, but yeah. The other skill is on hit, CV2, Persona Blast, restand, draw 2. Strong card, strong skill. Only problem that's a Persona Blast, but If you get it off, the skill is still super strong, even if you do not do the Dauntless Drive play. There are definitely games where you just win off of playing like old DOTE. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it's Persona Blast, so obviously you play 4 of it. No more, no less. So obviously if you have more, you want to play 4, but you can't play more than 4, so yeah. No less than 4, I would say you have to play 4 DOTEs. Next, our 4 appeal trigger is the base Overlord. So, you don't know what he does by now. His skill is Vanguard Rear, CV3, plus 5k, neg 1 drive, and then he has, I'm pretty sure the skill is on hit, restand. So yeah, so he just clears the front row, he's really big, he scales with any booster, super nice. He's the 4 appeal trigger because he's the last card you want to hold the opening roll again. You don't really want to ride him first. I guess if you personally value the cross ride, then I guess you could swap. I guess you could put DOTE on heal and base Overlord on draw. But that just seems kind of weird to me, so I'm not a fan of that. 4 base Overlord, strong card. There's always the meme of top deck Overlord per game, right? So that's why you play 4 of it. It's still a really strong finisher. Next, my 1-up is just a waterfall. This 1-up can honestly be anything. You can play literally whatever you want here. I play it because I basically play just because I like waterfall, but the scaling skill is still pretty strong. Because again, scaling guaranteeing 2 damage if they don't have double intercept is super good in this game. Because you don't have to worry about defenses or anything. Yeah. If you don't know what skill is, the skill is when attacking Vanguard plus 3k. That's basically the only skill he has. The second skill rarely comes up, if ever, but I'm pretty sure it's like when attacking a Vanguard, discard a grade 3 from hand to get 10k. It's just power. I guess it helps you beat over like last damage heals, but it basically never comes up. Yeah, I would say this deck is pretty solid. I would say most of the slots are basically like filled. I'd say the only slots that you can play around with are like the 1 of grade 3 here, ratios of the grade 2s where you either have a 2 of like this or 1 of, and then like the 1 up here. I'd say everything else is pretty stock standard. Nothing too special here. I would say the deck's biggest drawback is the lack of draw power. Like, this deck would have really appreciated, say, like a Luckbird clone with a Soul Blast 2 draw card, but we didn't get that early, so sucks to suck, I guess. Libra clones would have been nice. Again, we didn't get that early, and then like a Transriser clone would have been cool too, but they just Kagura Strip does not have one. But yeah, this is the deck. Not much else to say about it. It's strong for what it is. Little high rolly for my liking, but the deck can still go more. So next I'll have some gameplay for you guys. I don't know if there'll be muted audio or not, but if there is, I'm sorry. If there isn't, well, you get commentary. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Like and subscribe, all the good stuff. Tell me what you think about the deck, and I will see you next time. Peace out.